The Witch's Unique Love. The mysterious village of Camberton was a village known for its eerie silence and mysterious atmosphere. Dense trees stretched far and wide, with rundown houses scattered in between, connected by narrow dirt paths. Even during the day, sunlight struggled to reach the ground through the thick canopy, and by evening, an unsettling stillness enveloped the area, as if unseen eyes were watching every move. Among the village's few residents was Daniel, a young man renowned for his striking looks and magnetic personality. Tall and well-built, Daniel seemed like a hero straight out of a storybook. His deep eyes captivated everyone who saw him, and his smile could make the hearts of the village girls race. Daniel was admired by all, his uniqueness making him the subject of endless praise in the village. Daniel led a simple yet fulfilling life. Each day, he traveled to the nearby city of Lexington, where he worked as a driver. While the village offered him peace, the bustling city gave him opportunities to chase his dreams. At home, he lived with his parents and a younger sister, both of whom he adored deeply. Serving his parents and protecting his sister were his life's purpose. The start of a strange night. It was a cold, windy night. Dark clouds veiled the sky, and a faint rustling in the air made the atmosphere even more unsettling. Daniel was driving home from work. The dim headlights of his old car barely illuminated the desolate path ahead. The silence of the village road was unnerving, but Daniel was used to it. As he drove, he suddenly spotted something or someone on the roadside. A woman stood there, cloaked in a black shawl that obscured her face. Hesitant, Daniel slowed the car. In a soft voice, the woman said, "Can you give me a lift to the edge of the city?" Daniel hesitated for a moment, but his kind nature wouldn't let him refuse. "All right, get in," he said. The woman climbed into the front seat. As soon as she did, an inexplicable chill filled the car, like an icy breeze had swept through. Daniel glanced at her, but she kept her face hidden under the shawl. Daniel resumed driving, but his eyes were drawn to the woman's feet. His breath caught in his throat. They weren't human feet. Instead, they were twisted, with long, claw-like nails in an unnatural structure. A wave of fear washed over him, and his heart began to pound. Something about this woman wasn't right. Mustered courage, he asked hesitantly, Who are you?" The woman turned her head sharply towards him. Her glowing red eyes and sinister smile sent a chill down Daniel's spine. In a cold, commanding voice, she said, "Stay quiet. I don't ask questions. Just keep driving, or you'll face something far worse than your worst nightmare." Daniel froze as the woman leaned closer, placing a cold hand over his mouth. "If you value your life, don't speak another word. Drive," she whispered menacingly. A chilling silence, beads of sweat formed on Daniel's forehead. Fear gripped him so tightly that he thought he might faint. The once familiar car now felt like a prison. The cold air and the woman's presence made every passing second feel like an eternity. He drove on, his mind racing with questions. Who was she? Where had she come from? And most importantly, what did she want with him? As they neared the outskirts of the village, the woman suddenly said, "Stop here." Daniel braked immediately. The woman stepped out of the car, and Daniel tried to steal a quick glance at her face. But before he could make sense of what he saw, she disappeared into thin air, dissolving like smoke. Daniel sat frozen in his seat, his heart pounding wildly. He couldn't understand what had just happened. The fear and confusion of that moment were unlike anything he had ever experienced. That night, sleep eluded Daniel. His mind replayed the events over and over, each detail more haunting than the last. He couldn't shake the feeling that what had happened was only the beginning. Little did he know, this chilling encounter was just the start of a terrifying journey that would change his life forever. A strange dream or reality? It was the dead of night. The air outside was cold and still, but an inexplicable restlessness gnawed at Daniel's heart. Exhausted from work, he wanted nothing more than to sleep. Yet, as soon as he lay down and closed his eyes, a strange sensation engulfed the room. The air grew heavy, and suddenly he felt as though someone was approaching him. Startled, Daniel opened his eyes, and what he saw made his blood run cold. Sitting on his bed was a beautiful woman. Her appearance was enchanting, long black hair cascading over her shoulders, deep, mesmerizing eyes with a mysterious glint, and lips curled into a faint smile. But despite her beauty, there was something unsettling about her presence, something that sent shivers down Daniel's spine. Daniel's heartbeat quickened. He tried to scream, but before he could utter a sound, the woman swiftly placed a cold hand over his mouth. Her touch was icy, like she was made of frost. In a chilling whisper, she said, "If you make a sound or tell anyone about me, I will kill your family." Tears of fear welled up in Daniel's eyes, but he was powerless. The cold authority in her voice and the strange glow in her eyes seemed to pierce straight into his soul. Leaning closer, the woman said softly, "Don't be afraid. I won't harm you as long as you do as I say." Daniel stared at her in stunned silence, too terrified to move. The woman studied him intently, as if she could see into the deepest corners of his heart. Then she slowly backed away, moving to the corner of the room. Daniel's eyes remained fixed on her. Suddenly, her appearance began to change. The radiant beauty of her face faded, her eyes turned into deep, hollow pits, and her nails grew long and razor sharp. Her features contorted into something horrifying. Daniel was paralyzed with fear, unable to even cry out. The woman spoke again, her voice dripping with menace. "I will return every night. You will talk to me and spend time with me. And remember, if you tell anyone about me, your family will suffer my wrath." Daniel, trembling and overwhelmed, nodded in agreement. Without another word, the woman vanished, leaving behind a chilling coldness that lingered in the room. The next morning, Daniel struggled to get out of bed. He felt utterly drained, as if someone had sucked the life out of him. His once vibrant face was pale, and dark circles framed his weary eyes. As days passed, Daniel's condition worsened. He grew weaker and quieter, unable to muster the strength to go to work. His family grew deeply concerned. One day, his mother confronted him, her voice heavy with worry. "Son, what's happening to you? You're not yourself anymore. Are you sick?" Daniel looked at his mother, but fear sealed his lips. Her words echoed in his mind, but so did the woman's terrifying warning. Unexplainable noises at night. Strange whispers and unsettling sounds began emanating from Daniel's room. His family, confused and frightened, couldn't understand what was happening to him. But Daniel knew the truth. He knew exactly who was behind it all. Yet, paralyzed by fear, he lacked the courage to reveal the horrifying secret that weighed on his soul. Daniel's health was deteriorating day by day. His mother and sister were deeply worried about his declining health and strange behavior. However, Daniel's father, Gaffur, decided it was time to get to the bottom of the issue. One evening after dinner, Gaffur called Daniel into his room. "Son, tell me honestly what's going on with you. Don't keep secrets from us," Gaffur said, his tone a mix of firmness and concern. At first, Daniel remained silent, but then tears welled up in his eyes. In a trembling voice, he said, "Father, what's happening to me is not something humans can handle." With that, Daniel told him everything: how he had given a lift to a strange woman, the terrifying sight of her feet, and how she had been visiting his room every night with threats. Hearing this, Gaffur felt a chill run down his spine. For a moment, the room was enveloped in an eerie silence. Then, Gaffur spoke with resolve. "This is not a matter for a doctor. We need the help of a spiritual healer." The next day, Gaffur visited a well-known spiritual healer Maulana Shafiq, who was renowned for his knowledge of the supernatural and dealing with spirits. Ghaffur recounted the entire story to him. After listening carefully, Maulana Shafiq said, "This seems to be the work of a powerful churro, which such entities are not easy to handle. But if you have courage, I can try to help. Bring me to Daniel's room tonight." The healers planned before nightfall. Maulana Shafiq and Ghaffur prepared Daniel's room. A clay lamp was lit in a corner, and Maulana placed some talismans around the room. These talismans will force the churel to appear. But remember, no one must enter the room, no matter what happens, Maulana warned. Terrified, Ghaffur and his family stepped out of the room. Maulana Shafiq sat hidden in a corner, holding a large talisman and some holy verses written on parchment. The arrival of the churel, it was past midnight, and an eerie stillness filled the room. Daniel lay on his bed, his heart pounding with fear. Suddenly, the door creaked open on its own. A cold gust of wind swept in, and the woman appeared again. Her appearance tonight was more terrifying than ever. Her eyes glowed red like burning coals, her hair was wild and unkempt, and her long nails were sharp and blood red. A foul stench emanated from her as she approached Daniel, who lay frozen in fear. The moment Maulana Shafiq saw her, he began reciting holy verses in a loud, commanding voice. As soon as the recitation started, the churel let out a furious scream that echoed through the room, causing the walls to vibrate. "How dare you summon me here?" she bellowed, her voice thunderous. Maulana remained unfazed and continued his chants. He threw the talisman towards the burning lamp in the center of the room. A bright flash of light burst from the lamp, and the churel shrieked even louder. She stumbled back, hitting the wall, but quickly regained her balance. "You have no idea who I am. I will destroy you," she roared, lunging towards Maulana. But as soon as she tried to move closer, the light from the talisman stopped her in her tracks. Beads of sweat formed on Maulana's forehead, but he stood firm. "O evil spirit, I command you to leave this boy and return to where you came from," he declared, his voice strong and unwavering. The churel let out a sinister laugh and snarled, "This boy is mine. You cannot separate me from him." Her voice was so powerful that the room's windows rattled violently. She stretched her claws towards Maulana, and for a moment, it seemed as though her power might overwhelm him. But Maulana held his ground and recited the final verse with all his strength, intensifying the light from the talismans. The churel screamed in agony and tried to snatch the talisman from Maulana's hand. Just then, Ghaffur and the rest of the family, alarmed by the commotion, rushed towards the room. But before they could enter, the door slammed shut with a heavy bang. A deafening silence followed. When the door finally opened, Maulana Shafiq was lying unconscious on the floor, and the churel was gone. Daniel was trembling with fear but unharmed. After regaining consciousness, Maulana said, "This is far more complicated than I anticipated. That churel is incredibly powerful. We'll need a stronger healer to deal with her." It was the dead of night, and Maulana Shafiq was still struggling to contain the churel using talismans and holy verses. The room was filled with a chilling breeze, the lamp's light was flickering, and Daniel sat trembling in the corner. Suddenly, the churel screams ceased, and an eerie silence enveloped the room. The churel turned to Maulana, her fiery rage replaced by a strange sorrow. She paused for a moment and spoke in a subdued tone. "Do you want to know who I am and why I can't let go of Daniel? Then listen." The tragic tale of 1176. The churel transformed before their eyes. Her monstrous appearance gave way to that of a young, beautiful woman. Her fiery eyes now glistened with tears, and her face bore an expression of deep sadness. She began, "My name was Zara. I lived in a small village in 1176. I was deeply in love with a brave soldier, Idris. We dreamt of a life together, of marriage and happiness." But her voice cracked, and tears streamed down her face. My village was engulfed in flames during a war for freedom. My Idris was killed right before my eyes by the enemy. He lay there, writhing in pain, while I stood helpless, my heart broke in a way that could never be mended. I ended my life soon after, unable to bear the loss. But even in death, I found no peace. My spirit was condemned to wander this world, shackled by my grief. Looking at Milana, she continued, "When I saw Daniel, I felt as if my Idris had returned. His eyes, his mannerisms, they remind me of him." Daniel's resemblance and Zara's obsession, Maulana Shafiq, stunned by the revelation, composed himself and replied, "Zara, you are a spirit, and Daniel is a living human. You cannot burden him with the pain of your past life." Zara's eyes glimmered with both anger and despair. "I have endured centuries of loneliness. I never learned to live without my love. Now that Daniel is here, I cannot let him go." Taking a deep breath, Maulana said, "If you truly loved Idris, you must free his soul by letting go of your grief. Daniel is not Idris. He deserves to live his life without being trapped in your sorrow." For a moment, Zara was silent. Her voice trembled as she said, "Do you think I want this? No. I am a prisoner of this pain, of this loneliness that has haunted me for centuries. If I let Daniel go, I will be left utterly alone again. Do you know what that kind of isolation feels like?" Maulana stood firm and replied, "Zara, the solution to your suffering does not lie in Daniel. If you truly seek peace, you must go towards the light. Idris' spirit awaits you there, but for that, you must release yourself from this world." Zara let out a bitter laugh. "The light. That light will never come for me. I am trapped in your world, and that is my fate." Maulana intensified his recitation, holding the talismans up to her. "Zara, I command you to release this boy and return to your path. This is the only way for both you and him." Zara sighed deeply, her face softening momentarily with a mix of helplessness and acceptance. "Fine, Maulana, I will leave. But remember, without my love, I will never find peace." With a heart-wrenching scream, Zara vanished into thin air. The room fell silent, as if nothing had happened. Trembling with fear, Daniel asked Maulana, "Is she gone forever?" Maulana took a deep breath and replied, "Perhaps. But with such spirits, one can never be certain. We have shown her the way to the light. Now it is up to her to embrace it or try to return." Life in the household gradually returned to normal, and Daniel's days became peaceful once again. However, Zara's tragic tale left a heavy weight on everyone's hearts. Was she truly gone, or would her loneliness bring her back to Daniel one day? Only time would tell. Maulana Shafiq had completely taken control of Zara. A strange sense of defeat appeared on the witch's face, but the spark of love still burned in her heart. The atmosphere in the room was heavy. Daniel stood in the corner, watching the scene with mixed feelings of fear and astonishment. Zara looked at Maulana and said in a soft voice, "I give up. I will not make Daniel's life a torment anymore." But Zara's request, Maulana spoke in a harsh tone, "Zara, there will be no buts or conditions. You must leave this boy alone." With tears in her eyes, Zara said, "Don't mistake my love for my weakness. I have spent centuries living without my love. Now, when I see Daniel, it reminds me of Idris. I will leave on your command, but I have one last wish." Maulana replied seriously, "A wish? What kind of wish?" Zara said, "I just want to meet Daniel twice a year. I won't harm him or force him into my presence. I only want to see him from a distance." Maulana's decision, Maulana Shafiq pondered deeply and looked at Daniel's father. Daniel's father was in deep doubt. Finally, Maulana said, "Zara, if you truly have sincerity in your love, you must set him completely free. But understanding your condition and your pain, I will accept your request. But remember, you can only look at Daniel and you cannot interfere with his life. If you make any move, I will imprison you forever." Zara quietly lowered her head. The farewell of the witch Sarah gave Daniel one last glance. In her eyes were love, sorrow, and the pain of separation. She slowly said, "Daniel, your happiness means everything to me. I set you free, but my love will never end." For a moment, light filled the room, and Zara's form transformed into mist. Her words echoed in the air, "Love can never die, even if the body perishes." A new beginning after Zara left, Daniel's life gradually began to return to normal. He was now free, but there was a strange sorrow in his eyes, as if he still felt Zara's love. On the 2 days each year when Zara would come, Daniel would become unusually calm and quiet. The end and a place for reflection. Zara's story forever changed Daniel and his family's life. It echoed through the village, becoming a unique example of the sacrifice of love in people's hearts. But somewhere, Zara's love taught that true love places the happiness of the beloved above everything, even if it means sacrificing one's own heart for centuries.